I imagine that this is obviously very good news for Guyana because we've been plugging away at this over the years, perhaps decades. But first, explain to us, what is a carbon market?
Thank you, Neil. A carbon market is a modality through which a country could be able to place the value of the carbon services that the forests provide and being rewarded by monetary resources coming for that valuation. So in many ways, it's like a commodity that is being sold that represents the value of carbon stored within those forests that the country has and being paid for those services.
And we've done a lot of work already because we've already valued what our forests hold.
Yeah, so Guyana's forest is valued at a level of 18 million hectares and 19.5 gigatons or billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So we have done work over the last decade and a half in not only measuring the extent of forests, but also in quantifying how much carbon is stored in those forests.
And so we've been after a UN-backed global market for the longest while. Why?
Since 2009, when we launched the first low-carbon development strategy, we outlined 3 phases of development as we head towards implementing the strategy, which is accompanied by a strategy for climate finance. The first leg of that LCDS climate finance strategy was embodied around a payment for performance mechanism, and that saw itself result in a Guyana-Norway bilateral cooperation. We had always outlined that the second phase should be the carbon markets, and that would initially start being a voluntary engagement. Buyers and sellers voluntarily agree to engage in transaction of selling forest carbon services, and then from the buying side, buyers purchase those services. And we had outlined a third phase, which is that those voluntary structures would then move into compliance-based structures. And what we mean by that is those structures which were once voluntary now would be backed by UN mechanisms, making regulations and setting up modalities for compliant requirements in terms of the purchase and sale of carbon credits.
And why is that better?
Well, it's important for markets to have structures around it. So when we first started looking at the voluntary carbon market, and Guyana started work on this in December of 2020, it was important that the modalities are structured around commitments that countries place to engage in the markets. So levels at which they will purchase credits, compliance requirements that they would have to meet at the industry level and at the company level. It only goes so far when the purchase and the engagement in carbon markets are done voluntarily. That market will always be limited by the ability and the willingness of buyers to participate in a true economic sense. But for that market to really take hold and to be expanded and to be scaled up, the compliance market needs to set in, where the rules are now structured and the modalities are predefined. And that is what the compliance market helps to do. So that breakthrough moment yesterday at the COP29 meetings that we were here at in Azerbaijan in Baku really has been something that Guyana has worked on since 2009. We've been fighting this fight since 2009 to set up these structures so that the voluntary market could have this basis of firm and set modalities, and that this could then pave the way for a larger, replicable, scaled-up model of engaging in carbon markets and climate finance.
And Guyana is ideally placed to participate in its market if, as they say, comes on stream as early as next year.
We are, and you know, since 2009, this has been the pathway we've been on. We've been working at the negotiation level to build this structure, to work with other countries to help align not only the technical aspects, but also the finance aspects and the political aspects around what this market will mean. We've also worked at the technical level to ensure that the reporting modalities, the aspects with regards to monitoring forests, those areas of reporting to the UNFCCC, that all of these come together within our journey and throughout our journey. So I always use the analogy that we build a road to lead to this endpoint. And that road was marked by reporting, methodological development, and work at the political level to have patience, but to also build our way to this moment. So it's really a crucial moment, I think, for climate finance globally, because it reflects the culmination of work which started over a decade and a half ago. And from the Guyana perspective, we were not certain when this point in time would reach, but we're happy that all of the technical work that we have been building, the reporting structures, the technical aspects in terms of our submissions to the UN, all of these now are aligned to what happened yesterday. There is more to be done, but what culminated in yesterday's decision at COP29 really has led the way to the compliance market coming into being, and that being scaled up potentially.
In real terms, what does this mean for Guyana? Money, we're talking money.
In real terms, the decision made yesterday at Azerbaijan at COP29 of the UNFCCC means that Guyana now is able to move to that phase 3 of the work we had set out and that road we had set out since 2009, where we outlined that we can start off with a bilateral partnership. We can build to the second stage, which is the voluntary market, but the ultimate objective is to have a compliance market framework where there are set rules, set regulations, and perhaps most importantly, a framework within which there is going to be a more expansive structure for buyers and sellers. From a financial standpoint, what this means for Guyana is that the formal market structures which will come from this decision that has been set out yesterday, it will mean that the market will have a stronger framework, more buyer interest, potentially higher prices, and more expansive demand. What all of that will mean for Guyana, it will mean that we will now be steadily on our way to a mature market that is hopefully going to mean in the future higher prices, more demand, and expansive capacity in terms of the market transactions. So all in all, it is building a framework that was long in the making and that many had hoped would reach the point that it reached yesterday, and we finally are at that point.
So potentially billions of dollars we can earn from this.
It would mean for Guyana that, for example, the carbon credit sales agreement, which we entered into in November of 2022, which saw the sale of a third of Guyana's credits, bringing into Guyana at a minimum of $750 million US, that potentially could be expanded even further. Because now it's no longer the voluntary market, but it's the compliance market. It will mean more buyers getting involved, more sellers getting involved, and it will mean that the price level could potentially go up. It has always been the case that the compliance market, those that operate within specific regions of the world, for example in the European Union, they have had the strongest, steadiest price levels. Even through the volatility and the fluctuations of the voluntary market, their prices have always been over $40 per ton in terms of carbon credits, whereas the voluntary market is at half of that. So the structured approach would lead to a more stable, less volatile, and a larger and more expansive series of options that will be available for transactions to take place. And that would mean a lot of benefits for Guyana and countries like Guyana, whom have been unsure at some points throughout the course of this journey. But now all of this really is bringing real meaning to that expansive series of technical work, but also political work that was done in being patient and waiting for this moment to be reached.
And given the headway yesterday, are you positive that this could actually come on stream next year?
So yesterday's decision is a milestone moment because it was long in the making, reaching that political decision and agreement for the market to finally be agreed upon. There are certain modalities that still need to be finalized, and those fine-tuning elements will come on board, I believe, over the next year or so. As we look towards COP30, which will be in Belém, I think a lot of the finishing up elements, the elements that need to be refined, will come into place by then. So as we work towards that, I think the big part and the heavy lift that was involved in getting this modality set up, that was accomplished yesterday. And Guyana is really pleased to have been part of that journey, to have led the way in many of the areas that we saw come into being yesterday. And we have been, in some ways in many ways taking early action in a time of uncertainty. We weren't sure exactly how this process would turn out, whether it would evolve into a compliance market. And we're really pleased that all of that effort really culminated in something that is meaningful and could potentially bridge in a very strong way the voluntary to the compliance market. The work is not done as yet, but a lot of what was accomplished yesterday would be very meaningful for Guyana as we take the next steps.
Thank you very much.